I'm Bella, Mr. Wheeler, as you heard. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I have a few questions about your latest book, Nocturne, and
Oh,
about the Wilson Poetry Anthology 3. And
mm.
my first question is, do you come from a literary background?
Do I come from a literary background? I don't think I would say no, I don't. I think that I've been reading, obviously, for many, many years, literary works. Um, I guess when I was at school, I wasn't really interested because the teachers weren't interested. And so therefore, it rubs off, doesn't it? It becomes a cascade thing. If the teachers aren't interested, then the students aren't interested, and they weren't very inspirational, most of them. I had one or two really good teachers, but I think I started reading my own poetry after I left school. Um, and I started reading other works as well by people like J.R.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. That was one of my kind of amazing series of books, which I really got my imagination going. English poets like Dylan Thomas, not English, he was Welsh actually, but British poets like Dylan Thomas and even more recently people like John Cooper Clarke and Mike Gary. These people inspired me. The American poets, people like E. E. Cummings and the beat poets, Allen Ginsberg. These were that was my literary background, was all about reading what I was interested in when I was a young man.
Thank you for the first question. We can move to the next one. What writers did you enjoy reading as a child?
What writers? This is going to sound funny, but there was a children's writer, an English woman called Enid Blyton,
Mhm.
and she wrote a whole series of books for children about a group of children called the Famous Five. There were only four of them, but they had a dog as well, so there were five. And so it was the Famous Five. I used to read that. I also, as I say, read J.R.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, and The Hobbit.
Mhm.
And I also, as a child, was interested in C.S. Lewis's work, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which was all fantasy. And so that kind of stuff really got me on the road to writing myself. But then I got into science fiction. And then I started reading Robert Heinlein and people like, because C.S. Lewis wrote some science fiction. And then from him, I got into Robert Heinlein and I got into, I don't know, people like Isaac Asimov
Mhm.
and the likes of American science fiction writers who wrote a lot of stuff that was, I suppose, aimed at children or young people. And that really got me into the world of fantasy writing then. And you mentioned Nocturne. Well, Nocturne is really, I've got the reverse here. It's the obverse of yours here. It goes in reverse. You can read it backwards. And the thing about Nocturne is it's very fantasy driven, as you probably know. If you come to ask me any questions about it, there's a lot of fantasy in there. So fantasy really was one of my inspirations, really. So those were kind of the writers outside of poetry that I was interested in reading.
Yes, thank you. And Nocturne actually really catch my eye because I really like romantic stuff combined with sci-fi or something like that, and you really impressed me. I actually marked a few of your poems that I really liked, and Wilson Poetry Anthology 3 too, which I will ask you later about that because this
Yeah.
is my thing. And the second question, when did you start writing poetry?
It's difficult to say because I feel like I've always been writing. I think when I was in elementary school, primary school, I must have been about 8 years old, 9 years old. I started writing, um, and the first poem I wrote actually won a competition in the school. But then, years later, I looked at it and I thought that looks like something else, and it seemed that I'd copied some of it from some other poem, and then written more myself. So it was it wasn't fair really that I'd written something at that age which it looked was better than it was, but maybe the stuff I added to it was the real art for me. So I didn't realize at the time that I'd copied part of it, but there you go. I think Dylan Thomas copied a poem once as well and got away with it too, so it didn't do him much harm. Uh, I think the I don't like plagiarism. It's something that in my years as a university lecturer, which I retired from there, um, I had to stamp down on because plagiarism is cheating. But at the time, as a young boy of 8 years old, or whatever it was a launching pad for me, you know. And fortunately, I did it again. But writing poetry was always something that was quite important to me. So in my teens, when I was still at school and even when I left school, I was writing then. I was writing rather absurd stuff because I was reading rather strange poets. I'd also studied art at college as well, and I'd studied some rather strange artists, people who would now be considered kind of quite just modern art, people like Andy Warhol and
Mhm.
Vasily Kandinsky, and the likes of the op artists, Roy Lichtenstein, people like that, and that kind of set me on that kind of writing spree where I began to write rather weird, abstract, and sometimes nonsense poetry as well. Poetry that had a rhythm to it and a rhyme to it, but it certainly didn't make much sense. So I wrote all of that stuff when I was younger as well.
Yes, actually, we have the same story here because I started to write in a school competition, and my native language teacher, a Bulgarian, said, "Oh, you should go, you should try. You have nothing to lose." And I said to myself, "Okay, I can try because I'm singing and I'm an actress and a dancer." And I was thinking to myself, okay, I can try something new. And when she told me that I won first place, I got really excited. And after that, I
Mm.
started to write. And it's really, mm, I don't know, something that I cannot explain with words because it's something out of
It's from here.
space. And
It's
yes,
from here.
yes.
Mhm.
And I really loved it. So thank you for that question. Has poetry changed your life?
No, I wouldn't say other things have changed my life, but not poetry. Having children and grandchildren, getting married, you know, becoming a Christian, all of those things changed my life. But poetry hasn't changed my life. I'd say it's enriched it.
Mm-hmm.
It's enhanced it. It's given it a different dimension. And certainly, no, I wouldn't be without poetry because it's become a part of me, and I write whenever I want to write. I write a lot of stuff. I've got something like about 1,000 poems that I've never published. That they're just a lot of them are in pieces still, and some of them are yet to be finished. Others are finished, but I've never really published them as such. We've got a Facebook group
Mm-hmm.
called Invisible Poets, which I run, which I own, which I set up in February last year with
Mm-hmm.
nearly 19,000 members, and that is a sketchpad really for a lot of poets, like Tony, for instance. Tony Duckiver, who your teacher, to come in and experiment. So, but it hasn't really changed my life as such. No, no,
Okay. Can you describe the process of creating a poem and how long does the whole process take?
no. I couldn't describe it because it's very, very different every time a poem comes to you. It's very different. Sometimes it's a one line. Sometimes it's an idea. Sometimes it's a picture. And sometimes it's from a conversation or from a song that you've heard or from a book you've read. I mean, walking along the street, looking down, seeing a discarded, piece of rubbish on the floor, that could be an inspiration. There's so many things that um, would start off a poem. So I don't know really what the process is. I do know that once you've got your idea, then it sometimes lies dormant. I'll leave it in my phone. I've got I suppose it's an app on my phone where I just type things in
Yes.
and leave them for a while. And this is where all my hundreds and hundreds of poems are that I've never finished. And I might go back to one of them and write a bit more, and then maybe even finish it off. Sometimes a poem comes to you and you're finished in 5 minutes. Sometimes it takes years. So
Yes, I agree with
some
that.
of the poems, yeah, some
My
of the
process
poems
is
in not.
different. Yeah. Okay. So,
Yeah.
how does the title of a poem contribute to its overall meaning?
Oh, I think the title is really important. I think the title is the front door to enter into the house of the poem.
Yeah.
It's a shop window.
Mhm.
If your title is really catchy, then people will probably read the rest of it. I don't know if no, the poems in Nocturne. Let me see if I can find one where
Yes, I can give you an example too. How from the title I just started to read it and I really loved the poem.
well, yeah. Well, you tell me because there's so many here.
Okay, so the first one is Poems on the Bed Sheets. This
Oh
is
yeah.
really, it's amazing.
Well,
The
poems on
second,
the bed sheets. Yeah, and poems on the bed sheets really is about writing in bed, isn't it? It's about insomnia. It's about not being able to sleep because your head is so full of words that you need to put them down. So it really was, just kind of that was written in about 10 minutes because I
this
wanted to
is
get
me
to sleep.
literally every night. Every night. I cannot sleep until 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. and I have school the next morning and I'm going to school like a ghost because I was writing the whole night or I have some
Yeah,
thoughts that
yeah.
I cannot just. And the second one is Dark Seasons of the Soul.
Oh, Dark Seasons of the Soul. Well, um, that is. Let me talk to you about that one because that is rather a dark one, isn't it? It's what page is it on? I'm just going to find it now. Um, yeah, page 59.
Yes.
Well, that's. Let me just go through this one with you because this bears some talking about. It's only 2 pages, but what it does is it gives that impression that writing can be torture,
Yes.
um, because sometimes when you write about trauma, you write about bad things that have happened, you write about things that have really upset you or harmed you in some way even. And I guess this is really all about that. It's about looking back on something that really maybe upset you or hurt you in some way, and then trying to get it down onto the page. Hot incandescent roaring of the tortured mind. You know,
Yes.
an endless loop of unrepented lies. This is all kind of regret and damage that you're talking about, really damage to the soul. So it's quite an emotive poem.
Yes, actually, I really liked especially this one because I have a dark season of the soul right now in my life and I I just feel exhausted. Um, and I write about all of the things that upset me or that hurt me, and that one really catch my eye. So I really appreciate it, and the book understand me how I feel, and I really loved it. And the third one that I chose is My Dream Interrupted.
Oh, my dream interrupted. Wow, that's on page 66, and this one. Well, let me turn to it. It's a very short one. It's it's about romance. Definitely, it's about any particular person you care to think of that you might have had some kind of romantic link with. It can be for anyone to interpret. That's the issue, or the kind of the beauty behind this is that anybody can read this and think, "Yeah, that was me," at some point.
That's really
Um,
beautiful, really
and,
beautiful.
and I suppose the most important bit is the last bit where it was, "I will search for you, but I don't think I will ever find you again, not even in my dreams."
Yes, that's really beautiful. That's the line I chose for me
Mm.
to like this poem and accept the title. Really grabbed me, but that was really beautiful. And the last one, it's not the last one, just this is just four of my favorite because I cannot mark the whole book. So, yeah, I'm choosing particular poems. Awake, Asleep is the last one.
Oh yeah, that's towards the end, isn't it? That one. Where are we? Oh, it's not
86.
towards the end. It's page 80, 86. Did you say?
Yes.
Yeah, that's from 86. That's also in the new book that's just come out, the compilation book where I've put together 4 years of poetry, and this one features in that. Again, it's about the night time because the night fascinates me. It's got both beauty and terror in it. And this really is all about, trying to get to sleep, trying to wake up,
Yes.
trying not to sleep. It's about all those things. It's the tension of the night time. What happens in the night. You're meant to be asleep, but sometimes you force yourself to stay awake because there are certain things you need to do or think about. And oh, bed on fire, oh, sleeping head. It's a contrast. It's what they call it's an it's not an oxymoron exactly. It's more like an antithesis.
Yes.
Two opposing ideas. I'm sure you've learned about all this.
Yes.
So, oh, bed on fire, oh, oh sleeping head. It's such a contrast.
Yes.
But that's what you go through when you're writing.
Actually, I was awake asleep last night because I have a cat. She is 4 months. Her name is Tyla, and I thought that she was sick because I'm traveling a lot to work, to school, and to different cities and stuff. And I thought that she was sick or she was depressed and she cannot sleep the whole night. And she had
Mm,
a nightmares and because she sleep with me. And I was awake asleep, and now I'm really tired because she cannot let me sleep the whole night. And I was thinking about a lot of stuff, and I actually started to write something about her because she inspired me in some way.
mm.
And yeah, actually, I was awake asleep last night. So yeah,
It's
and
it's interesting because sometimes when I'm just coming awake again from a sleep, that's
mhm,
when some of my lines appear to me. Some of my best lines sometimes will come to me in my mind, and I have to write them down. So I grab from my phone, which is always by the side of my bed, and I write them down because I've just awoken, and these are kind of lucid thoughts from a dream or from just waking up. So it's a very creative time, actually. The
yeah.
night time, the waking up from sleep. Yeah.
So I noticed something in Nocturne that I want to ask you. How do you decide on the structure and the form of your poems?
The structure and form that usually comes from the idea. I don't really work on it. It can be free form, it can be quatrain, it can be even more kind of ordered than that in something like a villanelle or a sonnet. But generally speaking, the form takes care of itself. I mean, something like strange things when you're dreaming. Strange things happen when you're dreaming. That's got, I think, 9 different parts to it, doesn't it? I think, yeah, 9 different parts to it, and really the whole of that, the structure of that took care of itself. Some of it rhymes, a lot of it doesn't. It
Yes.
just flows because it's a dreamscape, and your dreams don't have much structure to them. So therefore, why should my poem have structure either?
Okay, thank you. What was your inspiration for Nocturne and for the Wilson Poetry Anthology 3?
Well, Nocturne was I had a lot of poems that I'd written about the night time and about dreaming and about
Mm,
the fantasy of the dark and so on. Excuse me. I felt I had to put together a volume based on that. So that's why it features so heavily. That's why a lot of this is about dreams and about nightmares and about um, the fantasy of the night. It's also about romance as well, about love, and it's about loss. It's about hurt and trauma, but that all comes under the kind of the garnish, if you like, of the book about being about the night. Whereas the anthologies, the 3 anthologies we published so far, We've done those through a number of poetry groups for the sole purpose, really, of raising money for children who are in crisis.
Yes.
And you'll probably know if you read the blurb on this that the Wheelsong poetry anthologies, um, the profits from the sales on Amazon go towards helping children to get food and to find shelter and clothing or first aid, medical care, even education. We work for, I don't work for, but I donate the money to through my company, the publishing company, to Save the Children, which is an international relief fund for children. And wherever there are children in crisis, like for instance in Gaza at the moment, or in just coming out of the Ukraine, places like that, you'll find that Save the Children are always there. And so I thought it was a worthy cause. So I mobilized and weaponized poetry, if you like. I mobilized my poetry groups and said to them, look, what do you think about this? You know, here's an open call for poems. If you want to submit, then send up to 3 into this email, and then we'll edit and see which ones are the best ones and put them out in a book. So Wheelsong Poetry Anthology 1 came out in 2022. And then in 23, we had 2 more books. In 2023, we had Poetry Anthology 2 in the April, and in September, we had Poetry Anthology 3. And we're planning 2 more this year as well, in April and September, to again raise money. I'm meeting one of the representatives of Save the Children this Saturday when I'm down in a city near here teaching, because I still work for a university. I still run master's programs for teachers, and I'll be meeting with her then for lunch and talking to her about the upcoming projects and to see how much money we can actually raise. And she tells me what they do with the money. It's amazing what they do with the money. So it's not just about bringing food into children and medical supplies in war zones or earthquake areas. It's also about sustaining growth as well. So in Ethiopia, for instance, there are lots of children who don't have any school to go to, or there are no schools in the area because either the teachers aren't there, or because they're too far away. They're in a remote desert area, for instance. And so what they decided to do, because there's no internet out there as well and no infrastructure, Save the Children bought, I think it was about 12 camels. You know, the camels with the humps on their back, and they built these boxes to put on top of the camels, and they stocked them full of books. And then they go out and they take these camels in a trail around a circuit over a period of months. And the children, when they stop, the children borrow the books and read them. And then when the camel train comes around again, they put the books back and borrow more. And it's the camel library. And I thought this is such a unique, creative way of educating children who would no other way be able to get access to education. It's a great way of helping them to learn to read and write, and also to learn about things like science and medicine and engineering. Who knows what careers will come out of this in the future? So that's where some of our money went
Yes.
that we raised.
When I was reading the Wheelsong Poetry Anthology 3, um, when I saw it in the back of the book that this is for a charity, Save the Children, I was really impressed because when I was younger, I was in Bulgarian Red Cross, um, which is a group that help kids, especially, and we donate clothes, maybe toys, books, and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
I was for 6 years in that group, and I was really enjoying it. But when I got, when I grow up, and I had a lot of stuff, and I had to quit. But um, I said to my friends, to all of them, if you want to join, you can help with something. And yeah, so
Hmm.
they joined, so they replaced me. And this is really special thing to me because I'm a kid that had a lot of stuff in my life, and my parents just gave me the world, and I really love them. And I know how lucky I am to have them
Mm.
and to have what I have now, the opportunity to talk with you. And yeah, and it's really important to help the kids because the kids are the future, and that's the truth. So it's really good that you're doing this. And yeah, so you said about the Wilson Poetry Anthology 3. How does the Anthology 1 and 2 differ from the Anthology 3?
They don't really. They're very similar in their makeup, the way they look. I don't know if you've seen them. Have you? Have you seen them?
Yes?
Right. Well, they're all published in the same way. They're published in three formats. They're published in paperback, which you have there maybe,
Mhm.
and hardcover, and also in the Kindle ebook format on Amazon. They get to be. You can buy them in places like Waterstones in the UK, and in America, Barnes and Noble. I'm sure you've heard of that bookstore. These are chain bookstores which cover the whole country, so people can go into the bookshops and buy them as well off the shelf or off the online stores. There are many other bookshops around the world that stock them as well. And the thing is that all three of them are the same in their mission. The reason that they're published is to make money for the charities. So every time a book is sold, money comes in and it goes onto the list, onto the total. And then at the end of each 6 months, I'll be sending a bank transfer to Save the Children with that amount of money. And so far, we've raised just over £2,500. I'm not sure what that is in Bulgarian money, but that's something like about €3,000.
Mhm.
I don't know what that would be either. Um, about the same amount of dollars, US dollars, $3,000. So it's not a lot yet, but we're gathering momentum and we're building up ahead of steam, as we say in England, on it because the more and more people become aware of the books and they continue to sell. So Wheelsong Anthology 1 has only sold about 300 copies.
Mhm.
Wheelsong 3 has sold over 400 now. And so by the time we come to Wheelsong 5, Wheelsong 3, sorry, has sold 400 copies. So as soon as we come to 5, hopefully we'll be selling more and more people will be aware of it because these are good poems and they're not poems that are weak or they're quite strong poems from lots of people. And they've all been selected by a panel of editors that I appoint, myself and usually two others. And we read them blindly. We don't actually know the names of the poets, and
Mhm.
they don't know who we are either. They know who I am, but they don't know who the other editors are. So it's double blind, as we call it, which works in academia as well. When you're reviewing poems, you choose the best ones, not based on who wrote them, what was written. Yeah.
Yes. I'm expecting the Anthology 5 because I have Kindle at home so I can install it. And I'm waiting. So my next question is, how does Nocturne is differ from your other poetry books?
Who's not doing different? Is that is that someone coming into your room?
This is our ring. This is our bell for school. It's ringing with a music or a song that our
All right.
teachers choose. So yeah, I'm sorry for that.
That's all right. Well, lots of other books that I've published over the years. This one here, rather strange, Shocks and Stares, which is rather a weird book because there's a lot of comedy in it, and there's a lot of silly poems. Like there's a poem in here called "I Ate a Planet," but it starts off: you finish your meal and then you look around for something else to eat. What else do you eat? You eat everything else in the room. You start eating the tables and chairs and the plates and so on. And then you eat the house and then you eat the whole street. And then you move out and you start eating the countryside. And it's a kind of a metaphor, really, on the way we treat our planet. And so some of these poems in here are rather crazy poems, but they have a really interesting meaning to them.
Yes.
Because there's more to it than just the comedy. So they are funny to read, and people say they end up, on the floor laughing about them. But there is more to it because there is a really serious message underneath each poem. I don't write poems on a whim. I write them thoughtfully. Um, and so that one really is something that is rather different to Nocturne. Nocturne's quite serious in many ways.
Yes.
There are other poetry books which I don't know. I mean, I'm quite pleased with this one actually. This is Ascent, which is all about love. It's love poems, and some of these are rather heartbreaking. A lot of them are fiction, and they didn't really necessarily happen to me, but they are fiction. Some of them were written from my own experience. And this one here, Old Flame, it's called. And if you don't know it, you probably know English fairly well because you speak it very well. But if you don't know, an old flame is somebody who you used to know, who used to be someone you were romantically linked
Yes.
with. We call them old flames, right? And it simply goes, she held a torch for him until it set her heart on fire and burnt her pain away.
That is really good.
And another one, which gravitation, and this one goes, she was my world and I was her moon. My orbital pathway was ended too soon.
Very beautiful. Very
So a lot
beautiful.
of these are quite short and some are quite long, but Ascent was a different book again. It was all about, like I say, love and romance, and love and loss, I suppose, is what you would call it. So some of these books have different themes. Others don't. Others are just collections. So the current collection, which came out this week, called
Mm-hmm.
All the Best, that one is the biggest collection that's ever been published of my work, and it's 300 pages long, and it contains, I suppose, a summary of all the best poems from the last 4 years that
Oh,
have been published.
amazing.
Yeah, they're all
Because I saw that two books that you just show me, that continues to my question. What role does imagery play in your books? All of them, actually.
imagery. Imagery is really vital. It's really important because a lot of us see in pictures. A lot of us have a visual kind of memory of
Mm-hmm.
things. You can close your eyes and you can see things in your mind. So I think imagery is really important, but it's also a poetic device because imagery allows you to illustrate something which you couldn't necessarily put into words
Mm-hmm.
any other way. So a lot of the imagery in my books, in my poems, is quite vivid imagery. Um, it's really important. It's more than just a metaphor. It's more like a kind of, I suppose, an allegory.
Yes.
It's a whole wider picture, and that's where the imagery comes in.
Okay, so I have a question, but maybe it's going to be difficult for you, but I have to ask you because what is your favorite poem of Nocturne? Do you have a favorite one from that book?
Oh, I have a favourite one in Nocturne. I don't know. It's like asking who are your favourite children, isn't it? Really. um, I don't know. There are poems that stand out for me. Um, I don't know. I mean, Cardboard City is really quite one that I love because it illustrates a lot of the stuff that's happening in cities all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that's close to my heart because I've worked with the homeless a lot, especially in my earlier years when I had more time. I used to work in what they called a mission, which was down in the centre of the city I live in now, where all of the homeless used to come to be fed and to pick up clothes and to get warm for a couple of hours, before they went back outside again. And we tried to provide them with clothing and whatever they needed. And so Cardboard City something that I often see whenever I'm traveling around the world. I see people that are homeless, and they often live under cardboard or under tents or whatever. And it's a terrible situation. There should never be homeless people. So in a way, it's my most favourite, but also the most horrific poem, because it tells the truth. And then I think there's another one in here which is very similar. If I can find it. Well, I mean, Cardboard City itself. If I can just find the place where I'd like to kind of read from. Yeah, in Cardboard City, whispers rise, a susurrating sigh of cold despair in vacant doorways, vagrant eyes, sit shaded from the stabbing neon glare. You know,
Yes.
and that really tells me that they're sat right next to a very opulent place, a very rich place, where there are people wining and dining, and the neon lights are attracting all the rich people in, people with money to actually go and have a nice meal, and they're sat outside, and the neon glare is stabbing at them and mocking them almost. So that kind of poem really
Mhm.
is where it's at for me.
Okay, so maybe it could be a common question, but I have to ask you, how can you
Yeah,
describe your personal style? Because everybody has a style. So,
I think I have probably two styles,
mm-hmm.
maybe more, but two that certainly. I've got the machine gun style, which is throwing lines at people and line after line after line after line until they're beaten into submission. So there's that kind of. Um, I don't know if there are any actually in Nocturne, but yeah, I'm in my dreams I keep. I sleep so deep, there's dreams to keep. I never look before I leap. I'd sooner dive in ultra deep and only paddle ankle deep. It goes on and on and on and on, and it's a machine gun, and every line rhymes. And it just keeps you inside the poem. You can't escape the poem until the end. That kind of machine gun stuff. And then the other kind of style that I write is much more classical. Um, I suppose pale horses. Pale horses gallop through my mind, hooves ripping up the thundered ground. They rear up like a drunken man to fill the instant with a fearsome sound. White manes do battle with the swirling air as foaming bodies churn up rough terrain. The equine roaring beats my ruined ears as pallid horses race inside my brain. That kind of classical flow is much more reminiscent of I don't know, Keats or Shelley or Byron, the romantic English poets of 2 centuries ago. So for me, that's a different style again. So those are, I think, are my two main styles. I've got others as well. We can be versatile as poets.
Okay, so I have two, maybe three more questions. And
It's all right.
so in Nocturne, at the back of the book, the bell is going to ring any second. So, okay.
Yeah.
Uh, you said that you accept poetry, music is in your life. So, can you
Yeah.
tell me more about that? Because I'm a musician and it got my eye. And
Yeah.
mm,
Well, I guess poetry and music for me go hand in hand because I'm a songwriter as well, and I've been writing songs for many years. In fact, I'm a member of the Performing Rights Society, have been since '84. And in 1980, 79, 80, I formed a band, a rock band,
mhm,
and we toured around the UK and published, released several records. They were vinyl records in them days. So I was the front man. So I played lead guitar and sang lead vocals, and I also played keyboards and a bit of bass as well. Any instrument that I feel that will express my ideas. So I've been a musician since I suppose, the '70s, because I'm very old. And and the thing is, that I still perform now. I played last night, yesterday actually. I played um, acoustic guitar and sang in my church,
Mhm.
leading the worship there. We have a rather large church. We have, I think we had 600 people in yesterday morning, which is quite big, isn't it? And there were seven of us on the stage playing, and I was one of two guitarists. And so I do a lot of music, express myself in music and song, and I suppose that's where that comes from. So yes, I am a musician, um, and played for many years in various environments, from nightclubs to church halls to big arenas, um, festivals, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you about that. And can you share anything about your future poems or maybe projects that you're planning?
I'm writing some rather strange poems at the moment, poems that, you know, are outside the comfort zone, because what I'm trying to do with my poetry group is to push people to get them to write stuff which is outside of their normal poetry, stuff which, content which pushes the boundaries, which challenges them, which challenges their technique, urges them and pushes them to get better. So I have to do it myself as well. So what I'm doing at the moment is writing very, very strange poetry, which seems to work. And if you ever cared to join Invisible Poets, which is my poetry group on Facebook, then you'll see some of the work that people are publishing there on the pages, because it is rather different now. I mean, the standard of the poetry is going up and up and up as more people join, and you get the really good poets coming to the fore. So there's some great poetry on there if you're into it. So please do join. It's easy to join. It's a public group. Just look for Invisible Poets on Facebook.
I
So
will.
so the, that's the kind of stuff that I'm writing at the moment. It's very strange, what I call avant-garde stuff, because it's out of left field. It's not standard stuff. I'm experimenting with form and with structure and with tempo. I'm experimenting with imagery. I'm experimenting with the whole thematic structure of poems, to see how I can push them. I'm not E. E. Cummings, or any of the kind of post-structural poets. I'm not like that, but I am in my own way trying to innovate and trying to create new forms of poetry. And it's fun because I've always tried to create new things. The music that I created at the time was rather strange and different, and I like strange and different things. So therefore, the poetry will come out that way. And I plan to publish a new collection towards the end of this year. Um, and there are several tentative titles at the moment. I'm not going to tell you, which one I think prefer. You'll have to wait to see when it comes out. But there will be a new book coming out at the end of this year at some point.
Okay, thank you about that because I marked my favorite in Nocturne, and so as Anthology 3 too.
Yeah,
Uh, One of my favorites is Those Eyes by Stokes. It's really
Graham Stokes.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
really beautiful, and maybe the poem that uh, represent me and my poems, because actually it's really similar to the style, the rhyme, and all of the things that are written here, and
Yeah.
it's really beautiful. Mm, the next one that is also my favorite is Angel by Jeannie Morris.
Gene who?
Jeannie Morris.
Morris. Right. Okay.
Yeah, really beautiful. Cotton sheets, cool on skin, gently swatch on the cushion. No, this is just perfect for me. And the
Mm.
last one, because I cannot mark the whole book, as I said for the Nocturne, A Love Story by Sushma Sharma, I think
Yeah.
it's called. Yeah,
Yeah.
this one is really beautiful too. Actually, the Wilson Poetry Anthology 3 is really connected to my poems because I'm writing in that style, really romantic, really, it's real. It's something it's not it's not sci-fi. It's really real and it's really touchy, and I really love that book actually. So
Mm.
I'm going to read one and two, and I expect five. So
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
going to.
the call for poetry contributions will be out around about March time for Poetry Anthology 4, which will be coming out in April. You'll, if you're on Invisible Poets or any of the other poetry groups that we put the call out to, I think there's 5 that are involved, then you'll see it, and then maybe you could contribute yourself. And who knows?
Thank you so much. And I have my last question, which is
Yeah,
I put it last because it's really important to me. And I ask everybody in acting stuff and music stuff that question. So, can you give any advice to someone wanting to write and publish poetry?
I think the best bit of advice ever is to never give up.
Yes.
Never ever give up. Just keep going, because there will come a point when you will achieve what you want. If you are determined, then you will eventually get to where you want to be. I didn't see myself as a poet to begin with, but I persevered, and I was determined to get my poetry out there, and here we are. It's the same with anything that you try to do in life. I was determined to become a university professor, and all my friends laughed at me. Um, they said, "Professor, that's ridiculous." But I persevered, and I learned, and I kept learning. I got all my degrees, and then I got my position at the university that I was teaching at for 20 years. And I thoroughly enjoyed that career because it was something that people told me I couldn't do. And when they tell me I can't do something, I show them 3 ways that I can.
Yes.
Just to prove to them that they're wrong and I'm right. And so that's about determination. It's about in English we call it sheer bloody mindedness. It's about ignoring people's mockery or ridicule and just getting on with it and showing them that you can actually do it, and then showing them, this is what you told me I couldn't do. Here it is. You know. So be determined, never give up.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Thank you so, so much for that little interview, as we can say it. Thank you. And it was really nice talking to you. So I'm just waiting for the future projects and the future poem. I'm going to join the group so I can see all of the beautiful stuff that everybody's writing and talking about. And thank you so much that you
Well,
shared my time
thank
with
you.
you.
Yeah,
And
thank you. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
yes, so have a nice day and continue, and a lot of love and good luck for everything in the future.
Thank you very much.